Hi there, welcome to another demonstration. We're going to talk today about 3-point lighting in Adobe Dimension. This is just going to be kind of a primer to introduce you to it and maybe some techniques, and then you can kind of adjust things from there. This is just going to be the bare bones. Right now we're going to work with 3-point lighting. That basically means this. Let me turn on a object I have here and let me change my view here to top diagram. 3-point lighting basically consists of having, we'll say in this case, a camera dead on with my model. Over on the left here I have a key light, and again this is my primary light to light up my model in this case. It illuminates my subject, and I have it on a 45-degree angle off axis from the camera. In this case it happens to be on the left side. Also on this side I have a fill light, and you can see that this is supposed to cancel out the harsh shadows from the key light. When this light is set up, it's going to be set up at the same degree angle as the key, kind of on the opposite side here, and also it's going to be the same height. And these are all starting points. And I'm going to set up a lighting ratio between the key and the fill of 2:1. So if I have my key light and I set it at 100% brightness, and that's the level I want to use, I'd set my fill light at 50%. Also, I may change the size of my fill light in a few seconds to kind of soften up this light a little bit. Also, there's a backlight here. This backlight's purpose is to backlight the back of the model, like the shoulders and the hair, and so on and so forth. If it's off to the side like this, instead of straight behind the subject and above it, it's called a kicker. So when this is put on an angle, this is called a kicker. And so you can put the kicker wherever you want to. What I'm going to do in my case is I'm going to put the kicker opposite of the key. So let me change my view here back to front full. This is a Mixamo model I pulled off Mixamo.com, which is a fantastic Adobe website. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to turn off the visibility of this plane showing my diagram. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over on the left hand side, over under starter assets. I'm going to go over to the lighting area and I'm going to click lights. And I'm going to click 3-point light. Now, what I'm going to do next is this. I'm going to come over and I'm going to turn off my environment light. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the key, the fill, and the back. So the first thing I want to do here is I want to set up my key light. So I'm going to click on key, I'm going to show its visibility, and I'm going to have on where you can see the shadows here. I'm not going to turn on render preview right now. The reason for that is, for training purposes, it's harder to see where the shadows are being aimed at and the height of the light and the length of the shadows. So for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that off just for a second. I'm going to come down here under properties for the key light here, and I'm going to make sure I'm on this, and I'm going to come down here to intensity, and I'm going to make sure it's set at 100%. Now, I would like the key light to be left of the camera, and we're acting like we're viewing from the camera right now, and I'm going to angle this over so the shadow is on a 45-degree angle from the subject, so my rotation in dimension here is going to be a -45. So I have this 45 degrees left from the camera. The next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to set my height at 45 degrees also. Now this is something you can adjust, but I'm going to use this as a starter. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is we've got the rotation, so it's negative 45 on the left. The height is 45-degree angle. The color is white, sorry. The intensity is 100%. So I'm going to change back to another default view I have set up here called Front MCU, or Medium Close-Up. So this allows me to see how this is that key light's going to affect this model's face. Now, I am going to turn on Render Preview here. Let's see how it looks. So the key light is basically coming in from the left-hand side and lighting up the left side of the model's face. We have a distinct shadow coming over here, especially on the nose, you can see, and on the eye on this side. So this side of the face is not receiving as much light because the key is coming in from the left. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over and I'm going to turn off the key for a second, and we're going to turn on the fill light. Now the fill light is going to be set up 45 degrees on the right hand side. So let me change my view to the front full shot. Let me turn off Render Preview. Let me turn off the key and on with the fill, and you can see the fill light's casting it this way. Well, remember the key light was casting the shadow this direction, so I need this just the opposite. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to select my fill, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to rotate this 45 degrees this direction. So I have my key light going, casting shadows 45 degrees this direction, and the fill light is casting this way. I'm going to set my height to the same height as what the key was. That was 45 degrees. The next thing is I'm going to use a 2-to-1 fill ratio. So what it means is if I'm going to have my key light at 100%, I'm going to set the intensity of my fill light at 50%. I don't want the fill light casting shadows. I just want it to fill in some of the portions of the shadows that were created by the key light. So let me go ahead and I'm going to change my view back to front medium close-up. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn up the intensity of the fill to around 50% because that's half of what the key. So now what we'll do is I'm going to turn off the fill. I'm going to turn on the key, and I'm going to turn on the fill, and we're going to watch how it fills in this area on this side of the model's face. Not making shadows, just filling in the dark areas. Boom. Now, I don't want to eliminate all the shadows because there needs to be some modeling on the shape of the face or whatever you're lighting up. So you can experiment with how much intensity you want that fill light to put out. Now I'm going to put it at 50 as a starting point because this is all starting points. I'm going to come down at the bottom where it says the shape of the light source. I'm going to leave it square, and I'm going to increase the size of it. And as you increase the size, it will soften the light impact. So now if I go all the way to the right, it looks too flat. So I'm going to bring the softness back down so it's a little harder light till you get it the way you like it. Now I'm going to bring it back to the default for 14%. Okay, we have our key light, we have our fill light. And now I want to turn on my kicker or my backlight. The purpose of this is to light up the back of the head and the shoulders. So what I'm going to do here is, depending on what you read and what you see on the internet, most people will put the kicker opposite of the key. So I'm going to go back to full view. I'm going to turn off, let's say, my fill light. So I want my kicker to come in from this side of the model and light the hair and the shadows. So I'm going to turn on my backlight. Now it's hard for me to tell things about this, but let me click on it here and let me hide this menu here. I'm going to turn off the key. I'm going to go to a medium close-up of the head here. Now, it's still kind of hard to see, but watch as I take the backlight, and I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to put the intensity up, let's say, to 100% for right now. In fact, I might even pump it up a little bit higher just for demonstration purposes. You see how it's lighting the front of her shirt there and the top of her nose? Remember, I'm just using this for shoulders and hair. So let's see if we can't work with the rotation and the height. Let me back out again. So now what I'm going to do, if you look at this, let me back out even more on my camera here. You see how it's casting this shadow completely forward? That means to me that that kicker or that backlight is way too low. So let's take the height here and let's increase the height. So now the shadow's being pulled back because the light's getting higher and higher. And since we kind of know if we take this height adjustment and move it to a larger degree, we know we're getting higher and higher and the shadow's being pulled back. And that's what I want. So let's pull back up the medium close-up. Now let's work with the height. I'm going to pull this up and I'm just going to pull it up. See how the shadow on the front of the shirt? Okay, that is the maximum height I can go. Now, let me bring down the intensity. So what I'm trying to do here is just get a light on the back of her head. This is about all I can do right now in dimensions as far as I can't really move that light. I can only work with the height. Let's take a look at something. I'm going to hold down my number 1 and get to my orbit. And I'm going to go look at the back. Now, I don't see much light back here, so let me bring up the intensity. There. So I'm putting this light back here, so it's lighting up the top of her shoulders, the top of the hair as best I can do within dimension as far as controlling the lights right now. Let me back that off maybe to around 100%. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's go around to the medium close-up front. Okay, so now what I'm going to do next is this. I'm going to turn off the backlight. Okay, let's flip the switch to check the key. Click on the key. Let's turn on the fill light to fill the shadows on the side of the face. Let's turn on the backlight. Now, that appears to me to be a little hot. But let's turn on the rendering first. Let's just take a look at it here. Let me go over here to the backlight, or the kicker. Let me bring it down. Let's say to 50%. You've got to make these changes pretty dramatic. Otherwise, if you just do them really small, you won't notice much change. So make them dramatic and then make adjustments from there. So let's bring the backlight to 0. And then let's bring it up to 50. So you're going to have to work with the numbers here until you get the lighting values the way you want. Remember that you can bring up the intensity of a light and then increase the size, and that will go ahead and soften that light. Again, you're going to have to work with this, but this is the basics of setting up what's called 3-point lighting. Yeah, again, in the studio, you're flipping the switches off and on to check these things. So it's really nice in Dimension just to click on this visibility icon. So here's key. Here's with the fill. And here's with the back. Again, you can go in with like the key light and make the key light intensity or brightness higher or lower. You can also go in here and start working with the height. Do you want the more dramatic? Bring the height of the light down. I'm going to put it back as my starting point of 45 just for training purposes. So let me turn the lights back on. Let me go over here to render, and I'm going to set up the current view as a render here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video here. I'm going to render this at quality high PSD. So let me click here. In fact, let me put a little addition on the name here for Monday. You might not be watching it on Monday, but I am creating it here. Let me render. And I'm going to pause my video here. Okay, we're back, and here's the render. It looks really nice. So that gives you an overview of working with the 3-point lighting and some starting points as far as intensity, height, and position. Again, you're going to go in there and massage those parameters for those lights to get the effect that you want. I just wanted to go over a basic 3-point lighting within Adobe Dimension. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.